What's going on, people? As promised, we are continuing our Reworking the Prophecy exercise. The rules are staying the same as yesterday. If you guys missed my kind of discussion on my design principles for this, go ahead and check out yesterday's video. We started off with strength, but a quick high-level summary. You should never lose to a prophecy on your turn overall, in most cases, and prophecies should not be instant game swings. They should just be boosts for your opponent. But I go into a little bit more detail in yesterday's video. So we're going to go ahead and continue on with intelligence today. Much like strength, not every single one of these cards needs an adjustment. But like I said many times yesterday, we are going to adjust every single one of them just for the sake of the exercise. Although if it was up to me, I'd probably leave at least a handful of these alone. So the first one we're going to take a look at is Shrieking Harpy. It's one of the game staples, basically forever. It's a 2-mana 2/1 with Prophecy, Shackle, and Enemy Creature. So, my slight change I would make to Shrieking Harpy, and it is a slight one, because I don't want Shrieking Harpy to get too much worse. Shrieking Harpy I would change to a 2-mana 1/1, and when played from hand, it would gain +1/+0. So when played from hand, this would become a 2/1. And the ability would stay the same, Shackle an enemy creature anywhere. So what I would change would be then, when played as a Prophecy, this would not gain +1/+0. So this would be a 2-mana 1/1 with an ability, Shackle an enemy creature in this lane. So it would force you to play this card directly in front of something that you want to shackle. And the attack being 2 means that Shrieking Harpy as a Prophecy would not be able to then trade up into a lot of the 2s and 3 drops that would be trying to target. Harpy would still be a very good play at reducing the potential damage that you could be taking on a given turn, but bumping down the attack and forcing the shackle to be a local shackle just makes it less of an incredible play, really on almost any rune. And that's honestly one of the biggest changes out of all of these cards. Next up, we've got Wisdom of the Ancients. This is one of those cards that I said I probably wouldn't change if I was in charge. I think this is a fine card. It's really not that good. If anything, it could probably use a little bit of a buff. However, again, for the sake of the exercise, I would change it to be same cost. As a Prophecy, give each friendly creature in a lane a random keyword, and then when played from hand, this would apply to both lanes like it does now. That's it. I mean, I don't think this card needs changing, though. This card's not that good. It's not, like, really game swinging on its own. I would suggest leaving this card alone. Next up, we've got Camlorn Sentinel. Another card that's mostly fine overall. I don't really have much of an issue with it. However, I would, for the sake of this exercise, reduce this to a 3-mana 1/3. It would keep guard at all times, and then when played from hand, this would get +1/+1, so it would be a 2/4 for 3. The stats still check out. There's even a potential where I would say maybe give this +2/+1 from hand, so it would become a 3-mana 3/4 from hand, and then a Prophecy, it would be a 3-mana 1/3 with guard. I'd have to mess around with it to really see. But overall, I think Camlorn Sentinel is a pretty fair card. Is another one that probably doesn't need to be adjusted. But I just like the idea and wanted to continue to explore the idea of cards that have better stats when played from hand versus getting pretty decent amount of stats for free from a Prophecy. I just think it could be an interesting avenue to explore on this guy. Unlike some of my changes to the strength cards, I kept Camlorn Sentinel's guard at all times versus gaining guard when played from hand, because I think this card, its role is really meant to be defensive, and I wanted to keep that defensive identity. Next up, we've got Firestorm, and again, this is one that I think is pretty fine overall. Firestorm is not that great of a card, but again, the motto remains, for the sake of the exercise, I would look at Firestorm to be, when played as a Prophecy, deal 1 damage to all creatures in a lane, and then when played from hand, it is a normal deal 2 damage to all creatures in a lane. I even think that there's room, if I wanted to get really crazy, to make this be almost like a mini Ice Storm. So as a Prophecy, deal 1, but when played from hand, deal 3 to everything, but I think that's slightly too good. So for just rebalancing this, forcing myself to rebalance this, we would do 1 damage to all creatures in a lane as prophecy, and then 2 damage as played from hand. But this is another one, like I said, I think this one is fine overall. This bad boy, this one breaks every single one of my rules, pretty much. Lightning Bolt, 4 mana, deal 4 damage. This is one of the cards that's kind of been synonymous with this game for a very, very long time. I think one of the earliest lessons you learn when playing this game is to play around or try to stay out of the 4 health range so you don't die to a Prophecy Bolt. And I think for most newer players, the most feels bad early experience you'll have, and it is, I think, one of the experiences that turns a lot of people off to the Prophecy system as a whole, is losing to a Prophecy Lightning Bolt when you are otherwise going to win the game. I think it's just a experience that a lot of players can relate to when they were first learning the game. It happens less often as you get better, but sometimes you just can't avoid it. So, what I would do about Lightning Bolt. When played from hand, this card remains the same. It's a staple card for blue, deals burst damage, solid removal. When played from hand, remains dealing 4 damage. The thing I would change would be, when played as a Prophecy, Lightning Bolt deals 4 damage to a creature. That's it. Very simple change. Still a very powerful card. Still a removal Prophecy. But you cannot lose to it, and it won't set up your loss with face damage. And then it gives them the choice of, do they want to kill a creature right now, or do they want to put the card back in hand and use it to try and kill you next turn? Lightning Bolt would remain an incredibly powerful card, but it would just get brought down a touch. Next up, we've got Spear of Embers, and again, this is another one. I think a lot of the Intelligence Prophecies are very fine overall. I think the only ones I would really consider changing would be the Harpy and the Lightning Bolt. But for these series, we are doing every card. So Spear of Embers is +3/+3, or you can throw it at a creature to deal 3 damage. Enemy creature, actually. I think that should... No, the way the targeting works, I guess it has to be an enemy creature. So the one change that I would do, if I was forced to, would be as a Prophecy. This is either +2/+2 or deal 2 damage, and then when played from hand, it remains the same. But again, Spear of Embers is fine overall. This card doesn't really ever see play, so I don't really see much of a need to tweak it. Yeah, it's just a fine card. Fate Weaver is our final Prophecy card in Intelligence. 6 mana, 3/3. Draw a card. If it's a Prophecy, you may play it for free. So I would be probably planning on keeping this card mostly the same when played from hand. And this is another card where outside of a dedicated Prophecy deck, it's not that good. So it probably doesn't need much of a change overall. There's actually 2 avenues that I would consider taking with this card. One of them is a little bit awkward, and the other one is, I guess, more elegant, but a harder hitting nerf, I would say. So we'll go with the more elegant change first. That would be 6 mana. When played from hand, draw a card. If it's a Prophecy, you may play it for free. But if you play Fate Weaver as a Prophecy, it still draws a card, but if it's a Prophecy, it reduces its cost by 1. That's a pretty hard hit to Fate Weaver. So the other change I would consider would be Fate Weaver. When played from Prophecy, you draw a card, and if it's a Prophecy, you may play it for free if it is not a Fate Weaver. That would just remove the high roll Fate Weaver into Fate Weaver into Fate Weaver into another Prophecy creature that can happen in Prophecy decks. That is a slightly more clunky alternative and kind of hurts the identity of this card, which is playing all Prophecies, giving a boost. So ignoring Fate Weaver, which is a Prophecy, would be a little bit weird. But those are the 2 avenues that I would consider for Fate Weaver. Either you may play for free if it's not Fate Weaver, if it's a Prophecy. But if you play Fate Weaver from hand, you can always play another Fate Weaver for free. Or, I think the more elegant and more easy to understand solution would be Fate Weaver remains the same from hand, but if played as a Prophecy, it would just reduce the cost of the next Prophecy drawn. I think that's much easier to understand. Somerset Orrery, this card needs adjusting as a whole, but it's not a prophecy card, so we won't be adjusting it as part of this discussion. Although I have given this card a buff in one of my previous videos that was based on cards that are really bad that need buffs. Somerset Orrery was top of my list for that one. So, yeah, that's it for intelligence. We will continue on to willpower next episode. This one has, I think, 2 more of the remaining biggest offenders in the game. If you had to ask me what the best prophecies in the game are right now, I would probably answer Shrieking Harpy, Lightning Bolt, Javelin, and Cloudrest Illusionist as my top 4. If I had to pick a top 5, I'd probably add Fighters Guild Recruit as the 5th. But I think those 4 are far and away the best. So we are going to get a chance to answer or address 2 of the remaining quote-unquote biggest problem prophecies next time. But for now, that is going to be it. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments section. If you guys are enjoying this, feel free to give alternative changes if you guys think you have a better idea than I do. Obviously, I'm just one guy working in a bubble, so I would love to hear your guys' suggestions. But yeah, thank you guys all very much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.